Warning: the events described in this story are completely fictitious. This is where truth dances with shadows. Throughout the series, the court will hear the public accusations that some people have made about current events and what happened. But beware, everything is fiction. And remember, you will choose the heroes of the next series. The silence in the courtroom enveloped everyone like a heavy blanket until the old, creaking door slowly opened. The high-pitched sound of the door's hinges sliced through the air like a knife, and all eyes turned towards the entrance. X AE A-XII. When Musk stepped inside, he wasn't wearing an orange prisoner's outfit, but a plain gray t-shirt and worn jeans that reflected the weight of the invisible chains he carried on his shoulders. It was as if these clothes symbolized an oppression no different from that of a prisoner's uniform. Today, he was here to testify against his father, Elon Musk, in one of the biggest and most controversial trials in American history. Everyone in the courtroom had one question on their minds. What did it mean for Elon Musk's own son to take the stand as a confessor against him? This was much more than a family drama. This would be an arena where power, betrayal, and truth would collide. George Washington, the presiding judge, banged his gavel on the table with his aged but determined hands. The sound echoed around the courtroom, adding to the tension. "X Musk, please come to the stand and be sworn in," he said, years of authority and a hint of curiosity lurking in his voice. X walked towards the dais with heavy and confident steps. With each step, the old wooden floor groaned slightly, as if even he could not bear the weight of this moment. His mother, Grimes, sitting in the audience, watched her son with her hands clasped tightly together and a nervous expression gnawing at her lips. Her eyes shone with a strange mixture of concern and pride. Elon Musk, on the other hand, sitting in the dock, appeared to be wearing a mask of calm among his lawyers. But behind that mask, the anger and frustration in his eyes was ready to erupt like a volcano. Familiar faces in the courtroom, such as Trump and J.D. Vance, took their seats in silence, holding their breath to watch this historic moment. No one knew exactly what to expect, but everyone felt that something was going to change forever. When X reached the dais, he paused for a moment. He looked around slowly, as if he wanted to engrave this scene, this moment, in his mind. Then, with a gesture so natural that no one would notice it, he put his hand to his nose. The same rebellious spirit caused him, here and now, to rub the snot on his finger against the edge of the dock. It was a small, disgusting gesture, but for him it was a silent rebellion against the oppression imposed by the court, a tiny victory. No one in the courtroom noticed this moment, but the slight smile on X's lips showed that the free spirit was still alive in him. Prosecutor Kennedy was disturbed by this gesture. Clearing his throat, he broke the silence. X AE A-XII Musk, would you like to explain in your own words why you are here? His voice was both formal and a little curious. He knew that the words coming out of this young man's mouth could change the course of the case. X took a deep breath. His chest rose and fell, as if he was preparing to release a burden that had been building up inside him for years. "I am here," he said, his voice a little shaky at first, but gradually gaining strength, "because I want to do the right thing. And because I can no longer hide what my father did in front of all of us." His words exploded like a bomb in the hall. A murmur went up in the audience, intermingled with whispers, looks of astonishment, and the sound of journalists' pens as they quickly took notes. Elon Musk's expression hardened. This was not what he expected. He thought his son would stand by him. But X surprised him. Elon Musk's jaw tightened. His eyes locked on his son. But one of his lawyers tried to calm him down by touching his shoulder with a quick movement. X continued, ignoring his father's reaction. He developed AI-powered systems to manipulate election results. He said, no hesitation or remorse in his voice. He violated federal security protocols. And he did it all just to protect his own power. But worst of all, X paused for a moment, closed his eyes, then opened them again. He tried to implicate me in the process. Breaths were held in the hall. Elon Musk fidgeted in his chair, but this time even his lawyers had trouble stopping him. X continued his words with determination. I'm not hiding anything. You don't need to force me. I know that everyone will call me a traitor. My family, my friends, maybe the whole world. But I don't want to deceive anyone. I'm not doing this to get my father punished. I want the truth to be told, that's all. The prosecutor nodded slightly, his face showing his respect for X's courage. So, are you saying here that your father has admitted his crimes? He asked, his voice clear and firm. X looked up. His eyes locked with his father's for a moment, but then he turned his gaze to the hall. Yes, he said in one word, but the word pierced the air like an arrow. And I will not stop doing what is right, even if it costs me everything I believe in. A deep silence fell over the hall. It was as if time had stopped and everyone was trying to digest the weight of this moment. The judge struck his gavel once more. The sound echoed like a gong. We will continue with the trial, he said, an unusual seriousness in his voice. But what we have heard here today is important enough to go down in court history. X AE A-XII Musk, I cannot congratulate you on your courage to tell the truth. That is not in my jurisdiction. But the truth had to come out eventually. And today, you have become part of that truth. When the hearing ended, the mood outside the court building was no different from the tension inside. The sky was covered with gray clouds, as if even nature wanted to share the gloom of this moment. As X slowly descended the stone steps of the courthouse, he was suddenly surrounded by the flashes and microphones of journalists. X, do you think you betrayed your father? Someone shouted. Have these confessions set you free or made you a prisoner? Asked another. X did not answer any of them. He bowed his head slightly, put his hands in his pockets, and pushed his way through the crowd. His steps were steady, but the invisible weight on his shoulders was still palpable. At the bottom of the steps, his mother Grimes was waiting for him. She was wearing a black hooded sweatshirt, her eyes red and moist. As soon as she saw X, she hugged him, so tightly that it was as if she never wanted to let go of him again. You didn't have to do that, Grimes whispered, her voice shaky but loving. X touched his mother's shoulder lightly and said, I know, he said, but I had to. This brief moment revealed a silent agreement between the two of them that had been building up for years. A little further away, Elon Musk's black Tesla stood on the side street of the courthouse. The windows were blacked out, but a slight movement from inside made it clear that he was still there. X looked at his father's car for a moment. There was neither anger nor regret in his eyes, only a sadness that recognized that a man he had once admired was now a distant shadow. Tesla moved silently and disappeared from sight, away from the noise of the crowd. At that moment, Abraham Lincoln came out of the jury room and sat on a bench in the courtyard of the courthouse. He had a pen in his hand and a small notebook in front of him. He was writing slowly, perhaps jotting down his thoughts about what this trial, justice, and truth meant. A journalist approached him and asked, "Mr. Lincoln, how do you assess X's courage?" Lincoln stopped his pen for a moment, looked up, and took a deep breath. "Courage," he said, "is sometimes not applauded, but it is always remembered." This young man stood in the midst of a storm. Whatever history may say of him, he chose his own truth. As the journalist quickly jotted these words down, Lincoln turned back to his notebook, as if this case was a piece of a puzzle that even he could not solve. X, along with his mother, slipped through the crowd and got into a taxi. As he looked out of the window, the courthouse slowly shrunk and disappeared from view. There was a sense of relief, but also emptiness. The truth had come out, yes, but would it give him his life back? A newscaster was talking on the taxi driver's radio. The testimony of his son in the Elon Musk trial has divided the country. Some declared X a hero, others a traitor. X switched off the radio. Silence was the only thing he needed right now.